At Ba, Hong Am, in the absolute silence of a 10,000 square foot mansion, the world's richest man wasn't checking Amazon's stock price. He was staring at a terminal ultimatum from a tabloid. They didn't just have his secrets, they had his dignity in high-definition pixels. A trillion-dollar empire, meticulously built over decades, was suddenly at the mercy of a few reckless, late-night texts and the relentless surge of aging hormones. Welcome to Society Noir. But before the legal sharks began circling the Mutrumbamui billion carcass of a marriage, how did a man obsessed with efficiency and logic succumb to such a primitive, messy downfall? Imagine co-founding a digital god, surviving the dot-com massacre, and accumulating wealth that could buy small nations, only to risk it all for a midlife crisis documented in grainy selfies. Imagine a betrayal that isn't just about another woman, but a systematic abandonment of the shared ideal that built a global monopoly. From the cold, tactical silence of Mackenzie Scott, the woman who saw the cracks before the world did, to the ruthless evacuation of assets orchestrated to save a stock price. This is a forensic breakdown of an elite collapse. Stay with us as we unspool the testament of betrayal, a chilling tale where the most powerful man on earth learned that in the world of the elite, your secrets are the only currency you can't actually control. And the theology of modern capitalism, Jeff Bezos was the high priest of optimization. Everything in his life was a data point. Every decision was filtered through the regret minimization framework. It's a beautiful, sterile way to live. If you can calculate the risk, you can neutralize the fear. But there is one variable that even the most advanced algorithms fail to predict: the sheer, destructive power of boredom. For 25 years, Jeff and Mackenzie were the gold standard of Silicon Valley stability. She wasn't just a wife, she was the first employee. She was the one who accounted for the early days in a garage, the one who drove the car while he calculated the future. Their marriage was the ultimate startup. But wealth of this magnitude creates a strange kind of sensory deprivation. When you can buy anything, nothing has flavor. When you have conquered the retail world, the domestic hearth starts to feel like a cage, no matter how much gold is used to plate the bars. The world saw a power couple. The Society Noir lens, however, sees the luminous decay. Beneath the surface of philanthropic galas and shareholder meetings, a psychological drift was happening. Jeff wasn't looking for a new partner. He was looking for a new mirror. He needed someone who didn't remember the garage. He needed someone who only saw the god, not the man who used to pack boxes. Then came Lawrence Sanchez. If Mackenzie was the calm, intellectual North Star, Sanchez was the neon light of a Vegas Strip, loud, high-octane, and utterly disruptive. To the average observer, it's a cliché, the billionaire and the helicopter pilot. But in the forensic of lust, this wasn't just an affair, it was a fetish of the ego. Sanchez provided a specific kind of toxic oxygen that Jeff's sterile empire lacked: the thrill of the illicit. They flew on private jets to secret rendezvous, exchanged messages that read like a hormonal teenager's diary, and lived in a bubble of perceived invisibility. It's the ultimate arrogance of the ultra-elite, the belief that their wealth creates a private reality where the rules of gravity and scandal don't apply. But while Jeff was busy optimizing his new romance, the vultures were already circling. The National Enquirer, a publication that trades in the sewage of the soul, had spent 4 months and, high trum, come tracking them across 5 states. The master of logistics had left a trail of digital breadcrumbs so obvious it was almost suicidal. Was it a subconscious desire to be caught? To burn the old world down so he could finally step out of the shadow of the family man image? In the world of high-stakes psychology, there are no accidents, only unacknowledged motives. The leak was surgical. The Enquirer didn't just announce the affair, they weaponized the intimacy. They described the erotic selfies and the graphic messages. Imagine the scene at the Bezos dinner table when the realization hit. The man who owned the Washington Post, the man who controlled the data of half the planet, was being blackmailed by a tabloid. The irony wasn't just delicious, it was expensive. This was the moment the civilian Jeff died and the noir Jeff was born. The transition from the sweater-wearing nerd to the vest-wearing, muscle-bound conqueror wasn't just a fashion choice, it was a psychological shedding of skin. But while Jeff was preparing for a PR war, Mackenzie was preparing for something much more permanent: the Great Divorce. She didn't scream, she didn't go to the press. She practiced the most terrifying form of power in the elite world: total, icy composure. In the world of the Motfinchent, a divorce isn't an emotional breakup, it's a corporate restructuring of the soul. When Jeff Bezos tweeted that joint statement of amicable separation, the world saw dignity. Society Noir sees a tactical retreat. The goal wasn't to save the marriage that ship had already hit the iceberg of Lauren Sanchez's selfies. The goal was to prevent a $1 billion contagion from killing the Amazon stock price. Enter the sharks. In the weeks leading up to the announcement, the hallways of the Bezos estate weren't filled with therapists, but with private investigators and mercenary lawyers. Their job? Forensic sanitization. They had to scrub the digital stains of an affair while simultaneously calculating how to amputate $1 billion without the patient bleeding to death on Wall Street. This was the Great Evacuation, a silent, high-stakes exodus of assets conducted under the cover of non-disclosure agreements and midnight wire transfers. Every share of Amazon stock was a hostage in a game where the kidnapper and the negotiator were the same people. But let's talk about the silent executioner, Mackenzie Scott. In every noir story, there is a character who says the least but gains the most. While Jeff was being paraded through the tabloids like a prize pony in a midlife crisis, Mackenzie was executing a masterclass in power silence. She didn't demand a public apology. She didn't leak her own revenge stories. Instead, she sat across from the man who co-founded a world with her and waited for the numbers to do the talking. Her leverage was absolute. If she had fought for her full 9% under Washington state law, she could have destabilized the voting power of Amazon itself. She held the doomsday button for the entire global supply chain. The result? A $1 billion settlement, the most expensive hush money in history. But it wasn't just for her silence, it was for her speed. She allowed the divorce to be finalized in Chinmu days. In the elite world, time is the only thing more expensive than a mistress, and Mackenzie made him pay for every second of his impatience to be free. While the lawyers were carving up the empire, the forensic of lust reveals a darker pathology, the cult of the new. Jeff Bezos began his transformation into the overlord. The bald, muscular, aviator-wearing billionaire wasn't just a physical change, it was a rebranding of his masculinity. He traded the logistics of a family for the aesthetics of power. Lauren Sanchez wasn't just a lover, she was an accessory to this new identity. She represented the high-gloss life, the red carpets, the paparazzi, the constant, vapid validation of being seen. But look closer at the footage from that era. In the background of every opulent party, you can see the ghosts of the garage days. The more Jeff tried to prove he was living his best life, the more he looked like a man trying to outrun his own shadow. The $1 billion Mackenzie walked away with wasn't a loss for Jeff. In his warped, optimized mind, it was a disposal fee. He paid billions to remove the only person who knew who he actually was before the world told him he was a god. But the sharks weren't done. The National Enquirer and its parent company, AMI, tried one last desperate move: extortion. They threatened to publish the below-the-belt selfie. Most men would have folded. Most men would have paid anything to keep their naked insecurity off the front page. But Jeff, fueled by a toxic mix of ego and newfound overlord energy, did the unthinkable. He published the extortion letter himself. He turned the noir lens back on the predators. It was a brilliant tactical move, but a psychological disaster. By winning the PR war, he permanently cemented his image as a man whose private life was a battlefield. He traded his privacy for a victory over a tabloid, but in the process, he lost the one thing money can't buy back: the mystery. The king was now naked, not just in the photos, but in his desperation to be perceived as untouchable. The Great Evacuation was complete. The money was moved. The wife was gone. The mistress was installed. But on the horizon, a new kind of storm was gathering, one that $1 billion couldn't predict. And the end, $1 billion didn't just buy a divorce, it bought a legacy of isolation. Look at the aftermath. Jeff Bezos didn't just leave a wife, he left a version of himself that was human. The man who once laughed heartily in flannel shirts has been replaced by a biohacked titan, a bronze statue of a man who seems more interested in the curvature of his rocket ships than the complexities of human connection. This is the chilling thought of society noir. When you have the resources to eliminate every friction in your life, you also eliminate the very things that keep you grounded. Mackenzie Scott, in a move of sublime psychological warfare, began giving her billions away faster than any human in history. While Jeff was building a $1 million yacht that was so big it required a second support yacht just to carry his toys, Mackenzie was signing checks to organizations that had never seen that many zeros. Her revenge wasn't a headline, it was a redistribution of the very power Jeff worked his whole life to hoard. She proved that the ultimate flex in the world of the ultra-rich isn't how much you can accumulate, but how much you can discard without losing your soul. And what about the fetish of the ego? The affair with Lauren Sanchez wasn't a romance. It was a rebranding exercise. Jeff didn't want a partner. He wanted a witness to his own magnificence. But there's a tax on that kind of vanity. In the elite circles of Seattle and New York, the whispers changed. He was no longer the visionary geek who changed the world. He was the cliché billionaire with the predictable mistress and the desperate need to stay relevant in a culture that rewards youth. The tragedy of the Bezos betrayal isn't the broken vows. It's the betrayal of the prime directive of his own life, efficiency. He traded a 25-year intellectual partnership for a high-maintenance spectacle. He traded the compounding interest of a stable legacy for the instant gratification of a tabloid romance. In the forensic of the soul, this is a total system failure. He optimized his wealth but liquidated his character. So, we return to that Kong AM silence in the Medine mansion. The checks have been signed. The stock has been split. The scandal has faded into the background noise of the internet. Jeff Bezos now sits on the deck of his $500 million ship, sailing toward a horizon that he owns, with a woman who mirrors his desire for the spotlight. But as the sun sets over the Mediterranean, the silence must be deafening. In the world of society noir, we don't ask if he's happy. Happiness is a middle-class concept. We ask, is he free? The answer is written in the $1 billion exit fee he paid to the woman who knew him before he was a god. He didn't buy freedom. He bought a new, more expensive cage. A cage where every smile is a PR move, every I love you is a potential leak, and every dollar is a reminder of the person he had to betray to become the man he is today. The Testament of Betrayal is a simple document. It states that you can conquer the world, you can dominate the stars, and you can outcalculate every rival. But you can never outrun the person you see when the cameras are turned off. Jeff Bezos has everything. And yet, in the cold, blue light of his own ambition, he is the ultimate specimen of the elite void. A man who sold half his kingdom just to prove he could still feel something, only to find that on the summit of $1 trillion, the only thing you can truly feel is the wind blowing through the empty spaces of a life that was once full. This has been Society Noir. Sleep well if you can afford to.